I'm bringing you a moto vlog from the north. I'm headed home from Lake Placid, which I will post footage of as quickly as possible. And I figured I'd do a moto vlog in the beautiful scenery of Lake Placid area, heading toward the northway, so away from Lake Placid toward the east. But the mountains are just so good here, I figured, what the hell, I'll just do a moto vlog on it. So without further ado, this moto vlog is going to talk a little bit about traveling, long distance traveling tips. First off, I'll be honest, my longest distance travel for an overnight was only like 150 miles, so it's not that long, but in that amount of time, I really do feel like I have the confidence to tell you some of the things that you should really keep in mind if you're going to pack for and go on a long distance trip. Long distance being, you know, a couple nights away from your house, 20 miles, 30 miles away, so to speak, or, you know, somewhere across the country. The number one thing that I think I screwed up, and probably will continue to screw up, is bringing the appropriate clothing. That seems like such a no-brainer, but the reality is the weather, wherever you're going, especially if you're heading very north or very south, the weather can change quite a bit, and within those changes you can become very hot or very cold if you don't pack accordingly. You know, if you leave your house and it's 35 degrees out, but you're riding down to Florida where it's going to be 80 degrees out, you obviously need a huge different set of gear. That's kind of obvious, but I feel like people, what they don't think about and don't remember to realize is that just because you're not going far south or far north or whatever doesn't mean that you might not need a very different type of clothing. You could be traveling directly west, but if you're starting off in the mountains and getting to flatlands and going back into mountains, the temperature is going to change drastically. For example, it was about 70 degrees yesterday, maybe 65, and we were 4,800 feet in the air on Whiteface Mountain versus 2,000 feet above sea level. Where we started from, and it was probably 10-15 degrees cooler. When you're way up in the sky like that, the temperature decreases a lot, and it decreases fast. So if you're going to do something like ride over Colorado mountains, you're going to need some serious cold weather gear. Unless you have just the perfect day, you got to really think about the fact that it might get real cold. And the last thing you want to do is to have been riding a long time on roads you're unfamiliar with and to be disadvantaged by being freezing cold or really, really hot if you don't have the right warm weather gear. So I can't stress enough, make room for it on the bike and pack gear, even if you don't think you'll need it. Pack gear that you don't think you'll need, because you'll probably wind up needing it. For example, when I was coming up here, it wound up being like 55 degrees and raining the whole way. And I was cold. All I had on was a sweatshirt. So I was pretty cold. And, I was fine. But, I really could have used my leather coat and maybe even chaps. And then I would have been golden. I would have been warm and some thick gloves. Not even a whole lot of extra gear to carry, really. But it would have made my experience a lot better and would have made me feel a lot better. So, it's just something to consider. Make sure you bring clothing that's suited for the environment that you're going to be in. Now, beyond that, see, what really sucks is you have very, very limited space for road tripping on a motorcycle compared to a car. So you've really got to condense everything you bring. If you have the opportunity within any reason to do laundry, pack less clothes to wear once you get there and pack more clothes to wear while you're getting there, and you'll find that you're a lot more comfortable overall. The reality of it is, unless you're going to a fashion show, you can wear the same pair of jeans 2-3 days in a row, and as long as you're not, playing around in the mud, nobody's probably going to notice that they're dirty. So keep that in mind. Wear stuff and bring stuff that can be worn dirty, and you have to be okay with wearing stuff that's not pristinely washed every second of the day. You have to account for that, the fact that you're not going to necessarily be able to wash clothes and wear as clean of clothes as you could at your, just at your house. Now, obviously, that sounds kind of grim, like, you're a dirty biker going on an adventure, but it doesn't have to be like that. You can, if you wear undershirts, for an example, and with jeans, I mean, you can get so much use out of a t-shirt and so much use out of a pair of jeans and a little bit of cologne or perfume. If you're a girl, you can improvise and make it work. And the way I look at it, like, if you're not willing to do that, well, then don't frickin' go on a motorcycle and ride then. I mean, those are sacrifices that you have to make unless you're willing to pack a very, very large amount of stuff. And hey, if you can do that safely and you're comfortable with it, then go ahead. I'm just saying, make sure you pack all your essentials and make sure they're there first. As for like first aid stuff, I don't know. I mean, bring a small first aid kit in my opinion, but the reality of it is, if you're injured enough that you really need a first aid kit, you're probably not going to be able to get to it. God forbid you crash, because your bike's likely going to be far away from you, which is kind of unfortunate, but just keep that in mind. Don't pack so much medical stuff that you don't know how to use and isn't going to help you. Just because you have to make room for other stuff. Just a small, like 6" by 6" first aid kit. Maybe one of the ones you can buy on Amazon, something like that size. I think is it'd be nicer if you could carry more, but it's a good compromise of having your first aid kit and still, like, being reasonable about what you bring. Heck, I think most people ride a motorcycle without a first aid kit, myself included, which is really probably not that smart, but I don't know. I just kind of don't. It's a pretty big item to carry day to day, but regardless, gasoline. One of the big things you don't want to do is run out of gas when you don't know where you are. So obviously make sure you fill up, half tank. Just keep filling up half tanks. With my Sportster here, that's freaking every 70 miles. What that forces me to do is get off the bike, stretch out a little bit, take a break, clear my head, get back in the zone, and not just stuck in the repetitive cycle of riding and shifting gears here and there, and not zone out. And then I can keep getting gas to make the trip safe. Don't push your bike to its limits when you don't know where the next gas station's going to be. Running out of gas is no fun whatsoever. So just don't let it happen, And then finally, if you have any mechanical ability whatsoever, bring as many tools as you can use to fix something on your bike if it were to break. And try not to carry extras that you don't need. Just bring the stuff that you can use, and I think you'll find that overall you're a lot better off, because if some little stupid bolt falls out or some screw falls out here or there, you can screw it back in and fix it and keep going. You're not going to have to call someone and like call AAA or something to get your bike somewhere. It's crazy for like some stupid little thing that you can just fix. And finally, there's a ton of tips here, but I'm just kind of giving you a few that I think are real important. Bring duct tape, like zip ties, the plastic, like zip ties. I don't know, people don't call them that, but that's what I call them. And tape, tape, like good duct tape, Gorilla tape, zip ties, and maybe even like baling wire. It's just thin metal wire that is basically kind of like a zip tie, but you can use it to tie stuff up and hold a part on a bike. You never know when you're going to have some really weird mechanical error. And you know what? Let's say the screws for your air cleaner cover came off. Just totally backed their way out and it fell off. And let's say that you have a bike where, this is not in the case in the Harley, but let's say you have a bike where you can't run the bike, like the air filter will fall right out if you don't have a cover on it. Well, you just tape the air filter on. Is it great? No, but you're still riding until you can get to a service station to fix it, or just keep riding to your destination or something, depending on how secure it is. So it's important to be able to bring tools and supplies that you can use to improvise fixes, because that's all too common on the road that you might have to do. And I guess my big final tip is to avoid the need for any of the things I've been saying except for the clothing. Pre-ride inspect your bike like you've never pre-ride inspected a bike before. Look at everything. Make sure that everything is as up to snuff as reasonably possible, so that when you set off, you're not bound for failure. If you know that your stator is going bad, replace it. If you know that your rear tire is pretty worn out, replace it. If you know that your brake pads are on the verge, replace them. If you know that your outfit, all that kind of stuff. Just if it's close to wearing out and you don't think it can make the trip, get rid of it and put a new one on. Because all you're going to do is have that breakdown when you're driving or when you're riding somewhere, and it's going to make your life a pain in the ass. So anyway, those are my tips, and I'm glad I was able to bring you a moto vlog from up here in the Northlands. And ride safe, everyone. Ride on, ride free. And if you ever get a chance to go to Whiteface Mountain in New York, do it. It's amazing. Feel free to talk to me about it. I'm going to post up a video about it probably before this one.